Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 9, 2023, the Chair recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Santos, for 30 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nearly 50 years ago, during the Cold War, Soviet Russia was the enemy of the people and the biggest threat to the free world. Fast forward to 2023, and it appears that history is repeating itself once again as the threat of nuclear annihilation comes full circle as two opposing ideological blocs dominate the world. General Secretary Xi Jinping has imitated Soviet Russia's playbook ever since he came to power more than 20 years ago. The Chinese Communist Party has built a cabal of global partners throughout predatory and oppressive investments in foreign countries, political strong-arming, stealing American technology, and strengthening ties with anti-American tyrannical leaders. This plan is taken straight from the Soviet playbook. Only this time, China is infinitely stronger than the Soviet Union ever was. The United States must recognize and take immediate action against China's push for influence in the developing world. The Soviet Union used military might and territory conquest to forge strategic alliances and expand its influence past the Iron Curtain. However, China mainly uses economic sway and exploits our globalized economic system to expand. Over the past 2 decades, China has emerged as a critical trading partner for many regions and developing countries across the globe, and it is not by coincidence. China is intentionally targeting less developed countries to popularize its authoritarian model and undermine developing democracies worldwide. China's strategic approach is rendering explicit in Xi Jinping's Belt and Road Initiative, aka the BRI, a lending gambit that grants China's allies over 140 nations billions of dollars under the pretense of economic integration and interconnected development. China has bought up so much copper, pork, and soy and constructed so many roads, trains, power grids, and bridges that it surpassed the U.S. as South America's largest trade partner and is now Brazil, Chile, and Peru's single largest trading partner. Compared to the U.S. and the EU, Latin America's bilateral trade in goods with China grew dramatically from $14.6 billion in 2001 to $315 billion in 2020. That is a 21.5-fold increase since Beijing joined the World Trade Organization. These insidious tactics have made China an undeniable economic superpower throughout unbounded dishonesty and underhanded manipulation. In 2019, China, an active trade partner of the U.S., allowed the yuan to fall below the 7-to-1 yuan to U.S. dollars peg it had maintained since 2015. This action set off a day of intense selling in global markets, and in the U.S., the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 2.9%, its worst daily decline all year. By devaluing its currency, China could effectively undercut competitors in the marketplace by offering lower prices on its exports and, according to the U.S. Treasury Department, gained an unfair competitive advantage in international trade. Intellectual property theft, corporate espionage, forced technology transfer, widespread product dumping, and currency manipulation are just a few of the economic warfare tactics used by the Chinese Communist Party. This brings me to my next point. One of China's most recent efforts to destabilize the United States involves forging an unofficial alliance with Russia to maintain Vladimir Putin's power at all costs. China is also the top trader with Russia and Ukraine. Before Russia invaded Ukraine, China had already surpassed Germany and the U.S. as Russia's most significant commercial partner and the largest consumer of its oil and gas. China has provided a financial lifeline to Russia over the past year by buying goods that the West won't and helping Russia continue to access financial markets despite harsh Western sanctions. China not only accounted for the highest year-over-year rise in export volume to Russia of any country in 2022, but it was also the largest exporter to Russia overall. Moving on, it is no secret that Putin and Xi are determined to end the U.S. and create what Xi called a new model of major country relations. Sure enough, they have had great success in forming the BRICS bloc and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, whose citizens comprise 2/3 of the world's population. China has been expanding its military production capabilities and is now the world's 4th largest arms exporter. There has been a drastic 80% increase in Chinese military sales to regions across the globe throughout the last decade. A growing number of United States defense officials are expressing concerns about China's swift military modernization. At this rate, the United States cannot keep up with their prices and turnaround, especially in regions like the Middle East, South Asia, and Africa. Between 2017 and 2020, Chinese arms exports to sub-Saharan Africa outpaced the United States by a ratio of nearly 3-to-1. China has spread its malevolent influence this far simply because China is determined to bolster our enemies and supplement them with whatever they need to undermine democracy and our sovereignty. China has allied with other iron-fisted regimes who are presently in the crosshairs of the U.S. sanctions, including some of the world's most monstrous dictators, such as Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela and Russia's Vladimir Putin. China has shipped more than $12 million in drones to Russia since it invaded Ukraine, indicating quiet collaboration between the two. And recently, Chinese state-affiliated entities sold metals and centrifuges to corporations affiliated with Iran's Ministry of Defense and Armed Forces Logistics to aid in constructing Iran's first hypersonic missile, which amplifies Iran's nuclear capabilities. Despite debt-trapping Venezuela, China has remained their steadfast ally, negotiating payment grace periods and concealing trades. China has even gone so far as to support a veto of the 2019 U.S.-backed resolution in the United Nations calling for free and fair presidential elections. The Maduro regime has become reliant on China for disinformation campaigns and social control programs, including an ID card that serves as a scorecard of loyal Venezuelan citizens to the regime.